The movie opens with Jegul out on the railway tracks at night, sent to check the area after his senior spots something unusual nearby. Moments later, his flashlight starts flickering, and static tears through his radio, drowning out his senior's voice on the other end. Just then, he hears footsteps and catches a glimpse of a figure in the distance. Before he can process it, the footsteps shift, now sounding from right above him. He turns to see a red light glowing on the opposite track. The figure reappears behind him, but the moment he turns around, it vanishes. At that instant, a train slams into him. The scene shifts to Gwanglim Station, where Kyung stands waiting. She notices a man nearby repeatedly banging his head against a vending machine, but pays him no attention. Instead, she greets the station master and introduces herself, mentioning that she'd called ahead earlier. Inside his office, it's revealed that Kyung is a YouTube content creator running a channel called Horror Queen. She explains she's heard rumors about strange things happening at the station and wanted to look into it. The station master tells her to leave, saying people like her show up often. However, when Kyung offers him a bottle of Korea's finest spirit, he's caught off guard and asks where she got it. She tells him her grandfather is a brewer in Jeonju. Won over, the station master agrees to tell her just one story. The story begins with a young man named Han, who suddenly falls when the train comes to an emergency stop. A few passengers help him up, but he seems to be drunk, barely conscious. As his eyes flutter open, he sees a woman at the train doors, banging her head against them. He gets off the train and heads into a store to buy beer and cigarettes, where the cashier tells a man not to touch anything unless he's buying it. Han takes another train, and when he wakes up, the train empties almost entirely. But the same woman is still there, banging her head against the door. Slowly, the force behind it grows more violent, and an old man nearby bolts into the next compartment at the sight of it. Unable to make sense of what he's seeing, Han follows him into the same compartment. Just then, his phone rings. It's his mother, asking if he's been drinking. He tells her he's watching a lecture and needs to go, but she reveals his class says he hasn't attended in 2 months. Before he can respond, the call suddenly cuts off, and a notification pops up on his screen. He checks it and finds a report. A young woman has died by suicide at Gwanglim Station, and it's the same woman banging her head against the train doors. Shaken, he turns to look back at her. But at that moment, the old man starts smashing his own head as well, and the woman suddenly closes in on Han, resuming her assault on the door right beside him. Terrified, Han watches as the train's lights suddenly go out. He switches on his phone's flashlight, only to find the old man and the woman gone. Seconds later, the woman reappears at the door, banging her head again. But this time, the impact is so violent that her head tears off and rolls to a stop right in front of him. Her headless body then walks toward him. But Han suddenly wakes up, realizing it was all just a nightmare. Right then, an announcement plays. The next stop is Gwanglim Station. He immediately gets up and rushes off the train, then turns back to look inside, trying to confirm that what he saw was only a dream. He convinces himself it was, until he notices caution tape marking the spot where the woman died by suicide. A moment later, he hears a sound and turns to see the same woman banging her head against a wall. And he realizes it wasn't a dream after all. In the next instant, she's standing right behind him and shoves him onto the train tracks. The station master reveals that the incident was officially ruled a suicide, then tells Kyung to leave and never come back. The next day, Kyung reads an article about the Gwanglim Station. She shares the news with Woo Jin, but they're interrupted by Lena, who dismisses it as boring. Woo Jin says Kyung has a good feeling about this story, but Lena wonders aloud if it'll even help Kyung's views go up. She points out that her last story was just as dull, and it cost her what few subscribers she had left. But he says beauty content and horror are completely different, and plenty of people enjoy drab stuff. Kyung returns, asking the station master if he has a stronger story than the last one. He mentions her video barely crossed 100 views, but she says it used to hit 100,000. When he asks what caused the drop, she admits beauty YouTubers took over, and horror content has run dry. He asks why she keeps pushing herself anyway, and she answers simply, because she's the horror queen. He agrees to share one more story about a student named Lee Miju, who endured great pain to obtain something she didn't have. The train suddenly comes to a halt, and an announcement plays, an emergency stop due to an issue at the station. Uneasy about the woman sitting across her, Miho gets up and moves to the other side, standing by the doors. There, she runs into her former teacher, who asks about her studies and comments that she looks different, wondering if she's lost weight. She compliments him back and asks if he's moved, mentioning a cafe he'd once recommended, but before he can respond, the doors open, interrupting them. The teacher's girlfriend, Jian, boards and remarks on how adorable Miho looks. He explains she's a student he used to tutor and introduces Jian to her. But Miho says she's getting off at the next stop. Jian says it was nice meeting her, but Miho walks away without responding. Later, while Miho is waiting at Gwanglim Station, the same woman from the train tells her that her nose is so pretty. Miho tenses up at the sight of her, but when the woman repeats the same line, Miho simply thanks her. Uneasy, she looks away, but the woman says it again, this time with a creepy smile on her face. And before Miho can react, the woman repeats it once more, smiling. Frightened, Miho moves away from her and positions herself beneath a man standing nearby. When she looks over again, the woman has vanished, but moments later, she spots the woman standing behind a pillar. Miho turns her face away, but then hears footsteps and finds the woman has moved closer. Each time Miho looks away, the woman advances. The moment she turns back, the woman stops moving. She pulls out her phone to try recording her, but the woman doesn't show up on camera, and suddenly, she's right in front of Miho. That's when Miho notices the glass in the woman's hand is filled with acid. Terrified, she runs, and the woman chases after her, as if trying to throw the acid on her. Miho flees into a bathroom and calls for help. She tells the operator that she's at a subway station, and a crazy person is chasing her with acid. The operator tells her to calm down and describe the woman, but Miho asks the operator how she knew it was a woman. Only then does the voice on the other end say that her nose is pretty. And to her horror, Miho sees the woman's hand holding the acid-filled glass. The woman then says her face is pretty too. Right before she opens the door and reveals her face, and as Miho looks up, the woman pours the acid onto her face. Kyung asks where he heard this story, but he brushes it off, saying he's getting tipsy, and lies down on his bed. Kyung shows Woo Jin a video she recorded at Gwanglim Station, and asks what he thinks of it. He says the subject is engaging, and the pace works well. But as he keeps watching, something in the footage catches his eye. Pointing at the vending machine in the background, he asks, "Isn't that a person?" That night, Kyung shows the footage to the station master, and asks if it's ever been caught on camera before. He asks what she thinks a subway is, and when she calls it public transportation, he tells her that for some, it's life itself. He reveals that the man wasn't always this way. Once an ordinary office worker, he lost everything piece by piece, his job, his family, his self-control. He kept spiraling until he hit rock bottom. The man named Kim goes to the store to buy noodles, and the cashier warns him not to touch anything unless he's buying it. He then tries his luck at a vending machine and finds a few coins underneath it. Among them, one coin looks strange, red and out of place. Heading into the washroom, he runs into another homeless man, who demands he hand over everything in his pockets. Kim gives up what change he has, and the homeless man tosses the red coin aside. Later, Kim sits at the station, seething, thinking about ripping the person who took his coins apart. He then spots a man across the tracks and starts hurling angry insults at him, but the man stumbles past without responding. Soon after, a sound catches his attention, and he notices the vending machine placed close by has changed. He drops the red coin in, and a can of a drink comes out. He opens it and tries to drink from it, but finds it's empty. Dismissing it as useless, he tosses it aside, only to realize the other man has disappeared. But looking around, he spots the man's clothes lying discarded on the ground. He walks over to investigate, and before he can make sense of it, 2 red coins drop onto the floor in front of him, and he just picks them up. In the bathroom, Kim takes the man's discarded clothes and finds his wallet inside, with some cash in it, which pleases him. Wearing the new clothes, he goes to eat and fills himself up. Afterward, craving soju, he checks his money and realizes he doesn't have enough. He returns to the vending machine, drops in the red coin, and gets another can. Just then, the other homeless man shows up and asks where he got the new clothes. Kim tilts the can toward him and opens it, but the man mocks him, asking what he's doing. However, the man suddenly collapses, and before either of them can process it, they watch in shock as parts of his body start disappearing, until he vanishes completely. He then reappears inside the vending machine, crying out for help, but terrified, Kim backs away. Just then, 3 coins appear beside the vanished man's clothes, and the vending machine returns to normal. Kim immediately searches through the man's clothes and finds a substantial amount of cash inside, leaving him thrilled. This becomes Kim's daily routine. He keeps pulling cans from the machine, hunting for new victims, and one by one, people start disappearing from the station. His greed grows, and so does his enjoyment of it, until he has more money than he knows what to do with, able to buy anything he wants. One night, Kim hears something at the station and looks across the tracks to see himself standing there, pulling a can from the vending machine. He suddenly throws up. The other Kim, seeing him, starts laughing, and before Mr. Kim can stop him, that other Kim opens the can. In that instant, he vanishes, and Kim finds himself trapped inside the machine instead. As his own former self walks over to check his clothes, Mr. Kim screams for help, but gets only a blank stare in return, as the machine swallows him whole before returning to normal. The station master asks if this was the kind of story she wanted, but Kyung murmurs in her sleep that she'll take down everyone who looks down on her. One night, Kyung goes to dinner with Woojin, where he congratulates her for crossing 300,000 views. She thanks him, and he tells her he likes her, but she suddenly wakes up, realizing it was all just a dream. She then spots him with Lena, who starts touching him playfully just to get under Kyung's skin. That night, Kyung visits the station master again and starts venting about Lena. He tells her, "They say when you hate someone for no reason, it's because you see yourself in them." She asks who says nonsense like that, and he simply tells her there's no need to yell. She apologizes, and he then asks what exactly she dislikes about Lena, and she says it's the way she builds popularity through lies. He asks if that's really the reason, and it's clear her hostility actually comes from Lena's closeness with Woojin, though Kyung just says she doesn't know. He tells her people always want what they don't have, when they could be happy with what they already possess. Chasing what you lack, he says, can cost you everything, and he's no exception. He adds that he doesn't have much time left, and maybe it's time she stopped coming here too. Later, Kyung arrives at her office to find it empty, and something about it feels off. However, everyone suddenly comes out, cheering for her because she has crossed 1 million views in record time. Woojin congratulates her, and as she blows out the candle, the room erupts in cheers again. Everyone except Lena, who clearly isn't happy about it. The next day, as Kyung scrolls through comments on her videos, one stands out. Someone claiming everything in the video is true, warning others to stay away from the place, saying she experienced it firsthand. Kyung meets the woman who left the comment, and she urges Kyung to take down all her videos, insisting these stories shouldn't be known to the world. When Kyung asks what she means, the woman brings up an incident that happened at a convenience store there, and mentions the Church of Guanglim. Kyung asks if that's the cult that vanished decades ago, and the woman confirms it, revealing that the station was built directly on top of the church's chapel. That is why strange things keep happening there. Kyung asks what she's talking about, to which the woman removes her goggles, revealing she's missing one eye, then suddenly grabs Kyung's hand, warning her that if she goes there, they'll all die. Just then, a horrifying figure appears behind the woman, prompting her to run from there. Later, at her office, she considers deleting her channel, but before she can act on it, she hears a woman laughing nearby. Intrigued, she follows the sound, only to find Woojin and Lena kissing, and devastated, she walks out of the office. The next day, Woojin asks Kyung if something's wrong, noting she didn't even say hi that morning. She asks if he has something to tell her, and he brings up dinner that night, mentioning he'd actually planned to take her out the previous evening, but got held up working outside the office. She points out that he was in the office last night, but he insists he was out all day with producer Kim. Thinking he's lying, she tells him she'd rather just focus on work than have dinner with someone like him. That night, Kyung visits the station master again, but he has no more stories left to give. His health has worsened, and even the hospital has told him to stop working. She begs for just one last story, but he asks if 1 million people liking her videos isn't already enough. She says she wants even more, but he points out she's already achieved what she set out to do. She insists she's come this far and won't stop now, growing frustrated as he tries to end it, calling it unfair. She then blurts out that he doesn't have long to live anyway. He only laughs, telling her there was someone like her once, someone who lived for others' attention too, though circumstances were different. The next story begins with Lena, mid-live stream for her viewers. As she wraps it up, she suddenly stumbles and grabs onto a handle, only to find something sticky smeared on it. When she arrives at the office, she interrupts a conversation between Woojin and Kyung, dismissing Kyung's topic as boring. Woojin tells Lena not to be so hard on Kyung, but she brushes it off, saying that's just how they push each other. Just then, Woojin notices her nose is bleeding. She heads to the washroom to clean up, and that's when she notices 3 marks on her hand, right where the sticky substance from the train had touched her. She visits a doctor and explains she touched some strange phlegm on the subway. He tells her he'll prescribe some medicine and suggests they monitor it for now. Later, on her way home, Lena runs into Kyung, who mentions she's following up on a story. Lena asks if that's just an excuse to snoop on her, then laughs it off, saying she hopes it goes well so Kyung can land a good contract. Kyung suddenly notices Lena's nose is bleeding, and this time it's far heavier, refusing to stop. Lena rushes to the bathroom to clean up, only to find the marks on her hand have worsened, with what looks like leaves now sprouting from her other hand. The same thing starts happening to her face, but she suddenly jolts awake in a photo studio. She quickly checks her hand, relieved to find it's fine. When Lena steps out, everyone is celebrating Kyung crossing 1 million views, and the sight clearly irritates her, but then she notices Kyung staring right at her. On her way home, Lena feels too dejected even to go live, and just then, an announcement plays. The next stop is Gwanglim Station. Her nose then starts bleeding again, and as she wipes it away, she gets horrified to see her hand. She rushes off the train straight into the washroom, where she finds her hand has gotten much worse. And not only this, the marks have now spread across her entire body. She digs through her bag for the ointment, but drops it, and someone picks it up before she can. The stranger asks if she's Lena, and if she needs help. She insists she's fine, but the person asks, is she really? Suddenly, leaves start sprouting from her hand, and before she can process it, they begin growing across her face as well. After a while, flowers have bloomed across Lena's entire body, and her lifeless body lies there in the washroom. Kyung brings up the church of Guanglim, saying she'd heard the station was built directly atop its chapel, which she believes explains the strange occurrences there. She shows the station master an article claiming the followers died by suicide to secure their leader's immortality, adding that some people believe the leader is still alive somewhere in the station, and asks if it's true. He asks what if it really is, and she tells him she wants to investigate the organization. He then asks if she'd like to meet him. Meanwhile, a detective arrives at their office and asks Woojin if he knows where Kyung is. He asks why they're looking for her, and the detective explains they tracked her down after watching her YouTube videos. Following the station master's instructions, Kyung arrives at Gwanglim Station and waits for the 3:34 train, the one she was told to board if she wants to meet the cult leader. While waiting, the lights suddenly switch on by themselves, revealing a man sitting alone on a bench, looking at his phone with a cat inside his bag. Just then, the train is announced, and at the same moment, Woojin's missed call appears on her phone. Soon after, the train finally arrives, and she quickly gets on. As the train leaves, Kyung sees the man still on the bench, but seconds later, he's sitting across from her. The sight immediately unsettles her, and then the man is staring straight at her. Growing increasingly uneasy, she slowly slides across her seat, but no matter where she moves, his eyes remain fixed on her. She finally gets to her feet and slowly backs away, but the moment the man stands up, she turns and rushes into the next carriage. He follows her, and Kyung runs through several train cars until the lights suddenly go out. She switches on her phone's flashlight and looks around, only to find the man standing right in front of her. Before she can react, his head appears inside the bag, and terrified, Kyung runs again as the headless man continues chasing her. Moments later, the train suddenly comes to an emergency stop, allowing her to jump onto the platform, and when she looks back, the doors slowly close, and the train pulls away. Kyung notices a staircase nearby, and as she walks toward it, she hears footsteps, as if someone is walking upstairs, and she catches a faint glimpse of a figure. But just then, another sound draws her attention, and she turns to see an old train standing on the platform. As she approaches it, the doors slowly slide open on their own, and inside, she spots a radio lying on the floor. Meanwhile, the detective tells Woojin that Kyung claimed in her videos to have interviewed the station master, and those videos were indeed uploaded online. However, the current station master is a completely different person. When Woojin asks who she had been interviewing all this time, the detective reveals it was a man who went missing 3 years ago. Meanwhile, as Kyung picks up the radio, a voice from the other end tells her he knew from the moment they first met that her curiosity would eventually lead her there. She had always been fascinated by the station's ghost stories, yet she never stopped to wonder who he was, or why he kept telling her those stories. He then reveals that the final story he wants to share is his own. Jae-jeol asks the station master what he was looking at, and he replies that he thinks he saw someone over the tracks, before requesting him to go and check. Jae-jeol hesitantly goes to check the area, but when the station master asks if he found anyone, he says there's no one there. The station master tells him to go farther in, but just then, he notices someone on the monitor and immediately orders Jeol to turn back. The radio then suddenly malfunctions and a strange voice comes through, saying it's so hot. The station master rushes to the tracks, wondering why the area suddenly feels so hot. But then, a red glow appears behind him, and turning around, he finds an old train standing on the tracks. Curious, he boards it and eventually reaches the driver's cabin, but before he can figure out what's happening, the train suddenly starts moving on its own. Shocked, he desperately tries to stop the train, but no matter what he does, it won't slow down. When he tries to leave the cabin, he discovers the door is locked. After several attempts, he finally forces it open, only to freeze in horror. The train is covered in blood-stained writing, and the temperature rises so rapidly that even the soles of his shoes begin to melt. He spots an emergency box and struggles toward it, but before he can reach it, countless hands suddenly begin pounding against the train's windows. He somehow manages to pull the emergency brake, bringing the train to a stop before collapsing onto the floor, and suddenly, everything returns to normal. He tries to open the train's door, but just then, Jae-yeol contacts him over the radio. The station master quickly grabs it and says he's trapped inside a train, asking where Jae-yeol is, and Jae-yeol replies that he can see him. The station master looks around, trying to find Jae-yeol, and is relieved when he finally spots him. But the relief is short-lived. Standing outside is a figure holding Jae-yeol's severed head. Before the station master can react, the figure drops the head and disappears into the darkness. And at that very moment, the train suddenly starts moving again. As he sprints back toward the driver's cabin, the door slams shut. Something then grabs his leg, knocks him to the floor, and countless demonic hands grab him. Back with Kyung, the train doors suddenly slam shut. She desperately bangs on them, begging someone to open the doors. But just then, the station master appears outside. He tells her he truly enjoyed the time they spent together, before quietly saying, "Miss you." As Kyung begs him to let her out, the train begins moving, and when she looks back at him one last time, she is horrified to see herself smiling and staring back at her. Meanwhile, Woojin arrives at Gwanglim Station, and just as he's about to leave, he hears a thud noise from a nearby vending machine. He ignores it at first, but when the sound comes again, he turns around. Seeing Kyung there, he rushes over and asks why she hasn't been answering her phone. But Kyung simply stares at him without saying a word before she smiles, and asks if he'd like to hear an interesting story.